Welcome to Pastor Andrew's Inspirations. If you enjoy these videos, please click on the subscribe button below the video and click the bell for more. Welcome to our online church, a congregation made up of many from around the world. No offering is necessary. Subscribing and watching videos will keep us alive under God's watchful eyes. Today is part 5 of biblical names, starting with B. Benjamin. Benjamin, meaning son of the right side, was the last born of Jacob's 13 children, and the second and last son of Rachel in Jewish, Christian, and Islamic tradition. He was the ancestor of the Israelite tribe of Benjamin. In the Hebrew Bible, unlike Rachel's first son, Joseph, Benjamin was born in Canaan. In the Samaritan Pentateuch, Benjamin's name appears as Benyamin. In the Quran, Benjamin is referred to as righteous young child who remained with Jacob when the older brothers plotted against Joseph. Later traditions name him as one of 4 ancient Israelites who died without sin, the other 3 being Chileab, Jesse, and Amram. The name is first mentioned in letters from King Sin-Cassad of Uruk, 1801 to 1771 BC, who called himself king of Amnanum and was a member of the Amorite tribal group, the Benu Jamina, or Benjamin, or in Akkadian, Marjamin. The name means son of the south, and is linguistically related as a forerunner to the Old Testament name Benjamin. According to the Hebrew Bible, Benjamin's name arose when Jacob deliberately changed the name Benoni, the original name of Benjamin, since Benoni was an allusion to Rachel's dying just after she had given birth, as it means son of a pain. Textual scholars regard these 2 names as fragments of naming narratives coming from different sources, one being the Jahwist and the other being the Elohist. Unusually for one of the 12 tribes of Israel, the Bible does not explain the etymology of Benjamin's name. Rashi gives 2 different explanations based on Midrashic sources. Son of the south, with south derived from the word for the right-hand side, referring to the birth of Benjamin in Canaan, as compared with the birth of all the other sons of Jacob in Aram. Scholars have proposed that son of the south, right, is a reference to the tribe being subordinate to the more dominant tribe of Ephraim. Rashi suggests it means son of days, meaning a son born in Jacob's old age. The Samaritan Pentateuch consistently speaks his name as Benyamin, which could be translated literally as spirit man, but is in line with the interpretation that the name was a reference to the advanced age of Jacob when Benjamin was born. According to the classical sources, Benjamin was only born after Rachel had fasted for a long time, as a religious devotion, with the hope of a new child as a reward. By then, Jacob had become over 100 years old. Benjamin is treated as a young child in most of the biblical narrative, but at one point is abruptly described as the father of 10 sons. Textual scholars believe that this is the result of the genealogical passage in which his children are named, being from a much later source than the Jahwist and Elohist narratives, which make up most of the Joseph narrative, and which consistently describe Benjamin as a child, by allusion to the biblical Benjamin. In French and Spanish, Benjamin is a common noun meaning the youngest child of a family, especially a particularly favored one. Beno. Beno is a name of various origins. In the Bible it appears in 1 Chronicles chapter 24, verses 26 and 27, where the Hebrew word is rendered as Beno in some English translations, and as his son in others. Beno is also a short form of Benedict in various languages. Beor. Beor, meaning a burning, is a name which appears in relation to a king, Bela son of Beor, and a diviner, Balaam son of Beor. Because the two names vary only by a single letter, scholars have theorized that the two refer to the same person. In a list of kings of Edom, Genesis records that a Bela son of Beor was one of the kings of Edom, who reigned before there reigned any king over the children of Israel. Bela son of Beor is listed as the first of 8 kings. The same information in Genesis is repeated in Chronicles. Balaam son of Beor appears in a well-known story in Numbers, where he is asked to curse the Israelites but repeatedly blesses them instead. Later he is killed for tempting the Israelites into sin. He is mentioned in passing in Deuteronomy, in a passage which repeats a synopsis of earlier biblical stories. Beor, the father of Balaam, is considered a prophet by Judaism. The Talmud says in Baba Bathra 15b, 7 prophets prophesied to the heathen, namely Balaam and his father, Job, Eliphaz, and Temanite, Bildad and Shuhite, Zophar the Naamathite, and Elihu the son of Barashel the Buzite. In the King James translation of 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 15, Beor is called Bozor. Al-Masudi said in his book Meadows of Gold and Mines of Gems that Balaam ben Beor was in a village in the lands of Shem or Canaan, and he is the son of Bara or Beor ben Sener ben Wasim ben Moab ben Lot ben Haran, and his praise were answered. So his folks asked him to pray against Joshua ben Nun, but he could not do it. So he advised some of the kings of the giants to show the pretty woman, and released them toward the camp of Joshua ben Nun. And so they did, and the Israelites hurried up to the women, and the plague spread among them, and 70,000 of them were dead. Beor may be the Baal of Mount Peor in the heresy of Peor, and may have influenced the demon Belphegor or Baal Peor. Bera. According to the Bible, Bera possibly means gift. He was the king of the wicked city of Sodom. spoken of in Genesis chapter 14 verse 2, that they made war with Bera king of Sodom. Scholars are divided on Genesis chapter 14. Francis Anderson's opinions range from identifying Genesis chapter 14 as a piece of late fiction to scholars who believe there may be some historical foundation behind the narrative it relates. In the narrative, Bera joins 4 other Canaanite city kings in rebelling against Chedorlaomer, an Elamite king, and his allies who rule a vast area. In the Battle of the Vale of Siddim, the combined imperial forces plunder Sodom and nearby cities, taking many people captive and also much plunder. Bera and the king of Gomorrah, Bersha, fled the battle and fell into one of Siddim's many tar pits, while other survivors escaped into the mountains. Barakia. Barakia, or Berekia, is a Jewish name that occurs several times in the Bible. It is derived from baraka, meaning blessing. Beriah. Beriah is the name of 4 different biblical individuals. One of Asher's 4 sons, and father of Heber and Malchiel, a son of Ephraim in 1 Chronicles chapter 7 verses 20 to 23, born after the killing of Ephraim's son, Ezer and Eliad, or rather his sons, and so called by his father because disaster had befallen his house. He was the father of Repha, the ancestor of Joshua, son of Nun, son of Elishama, a Benjamite son of Elpal. He and his brother Shema expelled the Gittites and were patriarchs to the inhabitants of Ajalon. His sons were Michael, Ishba, and Joha in 1 Chronicles chapter 8 verse 13. A Levite, the son of Shammai. He was jointly patriarch of a clan with his brother Jush in 1 Chronicles chapter 23 verses 10 and 11. Bernice. Bernice of Cilicia, also known as Julia Berenice, and sometimes called Bernice, was a Jewish client queen of the Roman Empire during the second half of the 1st century. Bernice was a member of the Herodian dynasty that ruled the Roman province of Judea between 39 and 92 BCE. She was the daughter of King Herod Agrippa I and a sister of King Herod Agrippa II. What little is known about her life and background comes mostly from the early historian Flavius Josephus. Flavius detailed a history of the Jewish people and wrote an account of the Jewish rebellion of 67. Suetonius, Tacitus, Dio Cassius, Aurelius, Victor, and Juvenal also tell about her. She is also mentioned in the Acts of the Apostles in Acts chapter 25 verses 13 and 23 and chapter 26 verse 30. However, it is for her unbridled love life that she is primarily known from the Renaissance. Her character was based on the bias of the Romans to the Eastern princesses, like Cleopatra or later Zenobia. After a number of failed marriages throughout the 40s, she spent much of the remainder of her life at the court of her brother, Herod Agrippa II. Amidst rumors, the two were carrying on an incestuous relationship during the First Jewish-Roman War. She began a love affair with the future emperor, Titus Flavius Vespasianus. However, her unpopularity among the Romans compelled Titus to dismiss her on his accession as emperor in 79. When he died 2 years later, she disappeared from the historical record. Berodach Baladan. Berodach Baladan, meaning Marduk, has given me an heir, was a Chaldean leader from the Bit Yakin tribe, originally established in the territory that once made the sea land in southern Babylonia. He seized the Babylonian throne in 722 BC from Assyrian control and reigned twice from 722 to 710 BC and from 703 to 702 BC. His reign is defined by some historians as an illegitimate third dynasty of the Sealand, inside of the 10th dynasty of Babylon, or Assyrian dynasty. He was known as one of the kings who maintained Babylonian independence in the face of Assyrian military supremacy for more than a decade. Sargon of Assyria repressed the allies of Marduk Apla Iddina II in Elam, Aram, and Israel, and eventually in 710 BC drove him from Babylon. After the death of Sargon, Marduk Apla Iddina II briefly recaptured the throne from a native Babylonian nobleman. He reigned 9 months, 703 to 702 BC. He returned from Elam and ignited rebellion in Babylonia. He was able to enter Babylon and be declared king again. 9 months later, he was defeated near Kish by the Assyrians, but managed to flee to Elam. He died in exile a couple of years later. Bethuel. Bethuel, meaning house of God in the Hebrew Bible, was an Aramean man, the youngest son of Nahor and Milcah, the nephew of Abraham, and the father of Laban and Rebekah. Bezaleel. In Exodus chapter 31, verse 1 to 6, and chapters 36 to 39, Bezaleel, or Betzalel, was the chief artisan of the tabernacle and was in charge of building the Ark of the Covenant, assisted by Aholiab. The section in chapter 31 describes his selection as chief artisan in the context of Moses' vision of how God wanted the tabernacle to be constructed. And chapters 36 to 39 recount the construction process undertaken by Bezalel and Aholiab and every gifted artisan and willing worker in accordance with the vision. Elsewhere in the Bible, the name occurs only in the genealogical lists of the Book of Chronicles. But according to cuneiform inscriptions, a variant form of the same, Silbel, was born by a king of Gaza, who was a contemporary of Hezekiah and Manasseh. The name Bezalel means in the shadow of God. Bezalel is described in the genealogical list as the son of Uri in Exodus chapter 31 verse 1, the son of Hur of the tribe of Judah in 1 Chronicles chapter 2 verses 18, 19, 20, and 50. He was said to be highly gifted as a workman, showing great skill and originality in engraving precious metals and stones and in wood carving. He was also a master workman, having many apprentices under him, whom he instructed in the arts, in Exodus chapter 35, verses 30 to 35. According to the narrative in Exodus, he was called and endowed by God to direct the construction of the tent of meeting and its sacred furniture, and also to prepare the priest's garments and the oil and incense required for the service. He was also in charge of the holy oils, incense, and priestly vestments. Caleb was his great-grandfather. Bildad. Bildad the Shuhite was one of Job's 3 friends who visited the patriarch in the Hebrew Bible's book of Job. He was a descendant of Shua, son of Abraham and Keturah, in Genesis chapter 25 verses 1 and 2, whose family lived in the deserts of Arabia, or a resident of the district. In speaking with Job, his intent was consolation, but he became an accuser, asking Job what he has done to deserve God's wrath. Balaam. Balaam, or Balaam, is a diviner in the Torah, whose story begins in chapter 22 of the book of Numbers. Every ancient reference to Balaam considers him a non-Israelite, a prophet, and the son of Beor. King Balak of Moab offered him money to curse Israel in Numbers chapters 22 to 24. But Balaam refused to speak what God did not speak, and blessed the Israelites instead. Nevertheless, he is reveled as a wicked man in both the Torah and the New Testament. In 2 Peter chapter 2 verse 15, Jude chapter 1 verse 11, and Revelation chapter 2 verse 14. According to the book of Revelation chapter 2 verse 14, Balaam told King Balak how to get the Israelites to commit sin by enticing them with sexual immorality and food sacrificed to idols. The Israelites fell into transgression due to these traps, and God sent a deadly plague to them as a result in Numbers chapter 31 verse 16. Bilhah. Bilhah, meaning unworried, is a woman mentioned in the book of Genesis. Genesis chapter 29 verse 29 describes her as Laban's handmaid, who was given to Rachel to be her handmaid on Rachel's marriage to Jacob. When Rachel failed to have children, Rachel gave Bilhah to Jacob as a concubine to bear him children. Bilhah gave birth to 2 sons, whom Rachel claimed as her own, and named Dan and Naphtali. Genesis chapter 35 verse 22 expressly calls Bilhah Jacob's concubine, a Pilegesh. The apocryphal testament of Naphtali says that Bilhah and Zilpah's father was named Rotheus. He was taken into captivity, but redeemed by Laban, Rachel and Leah's father, who gave Rotheus a wife named Una, who was their mother. On the other hand, the early commentary states that Bilhah and Zilpah were also Laban's daughters through his concubines, making them half-sisters to Rachel and Leah. Bilhah is said to be buried in the tomb of the matriarchs in Tiberias. Bilshan. Bilshan, or Mordecai, is one of the main personalities in the book of Esther in the Hebrew Bible. He is described as being the son of Jair of the tribe of Benjamin. He was promoted to vizier after Haman was killed. Bethia. Bethia was the Pharaoh's daughter in the story of the finding of Moses. Bethia in the biblical book of Exodus is an important, albeit minor, figure in Abrahamic religions. Though some variants of her story exist, the general consensus amongst Jews, Christians, and Muslims is that she is the adoptive mother of the prophet Moses. Muslims identify her with Asiya, the great royal wife of the Pharaoh. In either version, she saved Moses from certain death from both the Nile River and from the Pharaoh, as she ensured the well-being of Moses throughout his early life. She played an essential role in lifting the Hebrew slaves out of the bondage in Egypt, their journey to the Promised Land, and the establishment of the Ten Commandments. Blastus. According to the Bible, Blastus was the chamberlain of Herod Agrippa in Acts chapter 12 verse 20, a mediator for the Sidonians and Tyrians, and was believed to be involved in the events that led to Herod's death. According to Acts chapter 12 verse 20, Herod was displeased with the people of Tyre and Sidon and forbade the export of food to them, as they were dependent on delivery of food from Judea, and Judea was affected by famine. The Sidonians and Tyrians made Blastus their friend, possibly through bribery. Blastus helped them obtain an audience with Herod. Acts chapter 12 verse 23 states that Herod was struck dead by God when the people of Sidon and Tyre offered him worship. Boanerges. And James the son of Zebedee, and John the brother of James, and he gave them the name Boanerges, which is sons of thunder. Jesus surnames the brothers James and John to reflect their hastiness. Boaz. Boaz is a biblical figure appearing in the book of Ruth, in the Hebrew Bible, and in the genealogies of Jesus in the New Testament, and also the name of a pillar in the portico of the historic temple in Jerusalem. The word is found 24 times in the scriptures, 2 being in Greek in the form booz. Bohan. The stone of Bohan, son of Reuben, is mentioned in Joshua chapter 15 verse 6 as a point along the boundary of the land allocated to the tribe of Judah. Bohan is not named as one of Reuben's sons where they are listed in Genesis chapter 46 verse 9. Bohan is a name which appears twice in the Hebrew Bible. In both cases it appears in the phrase, the stone of Bohan, the son of Reuben, which refers to a place along the boundary between Judah and the tribe of Benjamin. Buna. In the Bible, Buna, meaning understanding, is the head of a family of the tribe of Judah in 1 Chronicles chapter 2 verse 25. He was the son of Jerahmeel, the son of Hezron, the son of Perez, and the son of Judah. Buzi. Buzi was the father of Ezekiel in Ezekiel chapter 1 verse 3. Ezekiel, like Jeremiah, is said to have been a descendant of Joshua by his marriage with the proselyte Rahab in the Talmud. Adonai Nisi, the Lord is our banner. Remember, if you like these videos, please click the red subscribe button below and click the bell for notifications. God's blessings be upon this message and us all.